The following podcast is a presentation of This Is Infamous. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to this week's edition of Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. I'm your host, as always, Billy Donnelly, who you can find at JoeBlow.com and thisisinfamous.com. Want to send my thanks out to you for finding this show, however you got to this particular episode, streaming, downloading, whatever it is, through your chosen podcast distribution model, whether it's iTunes or Stitcher or Blueberry or Google Play. I appreciate it. Keep spreading the word. Keep sharing these episodes to all your friends, family, enemies, frenemies, whoever it is, people in jail. I don't care. As long as they're listening, make sure that you keep subscribing and keep commenting to the show so that we know what a good job that it is that we're doing. And also you help us out with our placement on all of those various means. Big show, lots of show coming up this week, lots of stuff to talk about. And for once, this is a rarity for this particular episode. For once, we have very little to talk about when it comes to the WWE. That's right. I'm not going to kick off the show talking about Monday Night Raw. In fact, Monday Night Raw will come way late in the show as I sort of run down a disappointing 4th of July episode of Monday Night Raw. No, what I'm actually going to start this show talking about, what I'm actually going to kick off this episode talking about, is TNA, Impact Wrestling. That's right, we searched through the depths to find something in TNA worth talking about. And you know what? That's hyperbole. That's not necessarily true. TNA actually did something worth talking about. TNA did something worth taking notice of. And whether you liked what they did or you didn't like what they did, what TNA Impact Wrestling managed to do this particular week is create content with a buzz that at least had people bringing up TNA in the conversation. Now, if you don't know what it is that I'm talking about, please go out there and find it. The video is out there to watch. I think it's 17 minutes in total. You don't have to do it right now, unless you want to pause. You can pause the episode, go and watch it, and then come back. But I am talking about the Hardy versus Hardy battle. The final deletion. One of the truly most absurd and bizarre things I have ever seen in all of the time I have ever been a fan of professional wrestling. It is so weird. It is so off the wall. And yet, like a car wreck, could not look away. That doesn't mean it's outstanding, but it's different. It takes some chances. There's some risk involved. And by not adhering to formula, by trying to sort of shake things up and do something unlike everything that we're seeing right now, TNA, in this particular episode of Impact Wrestling, generated the best ratings they have had since they debuted on Pop TV. That's how many people are talking about the final deletion. With broken Matt Hardy against Brother Nero Jeff Hardy in a strange backyard wrestling match of sorts that involves the gardener and a motorcycle chase and really terrible fake hologram special effects. And yet, as I watched all of this play out, I couldn't stop watching. I couldn't stop. I could not hit stop and say, this is garbage, I'm going to look away. It was almost so bad it was good. It was almost sci-fi original worthy. Like, you could probably take the final deletion and stick it with Sharknado and say, all right, I'm in for a really strange night, but I'm in for it. I'm willing to sit down and take a look at this. And with the final deletion, which no, we'll spoil some of it, because I would hope that as a wrestling fan listening to this particular episode, you have gone out of your way to have already seen it. If you haven't seen it by now, you're probably in the minority when it comes to wrestling fans, because everybody's talking about it. And, you know, we've talked about this recently on the show, which is TNA sort of turning a creative corner as of late. It's not the TNA that it used to be, where Hulk Hogan was around for a while, and Eric Bischoff was helping run things for a while, and Jeff Jarrett was around at a time, and the Stinger was here, and the Main Event Mafia, and you had Kurt Angle as a big part of things. I mean, there's been a ton of iterations of what TNA has been in the 12, 13, 14 years they've been around. This isn't the AJ Styles era. This isn't Samoa Joe. This is something else. And it seems like, at least right now, TNA is committing to the hand that they have rather than constantly chasing something else. Who else can we bring in? Who used to be popular in the WWE? Right now, they're committing to something similar to what SmackDown had at its height with the SmackDown 6. They have a handful of guys who they are crafting their shows around. Whether it's Bobby Lashley or EC3 or the Hardys or Drew Galloway. I mean, they have a handful of guys who they have at the top. And other than the Hardys, who one day will probably go into the WWE Hall of Fame, they are hardly what you would consider name value wrestlers in the overall scheme of things. Bobby Lashley went through the WWE system, and he left, and he tried to do some MMA, and then he came back, and he became sort of a TNA guy, who he's been for a while, who's really improved his game. But when you look at those at the top of TNA, once again, outside of the Hardys, you don't see people who were former box office draws in the WWE. The TNA has finally, after all this time, come to understand that they need to create their own identity for themselves. Make something different for themselves that will stand out for itself. They're not trying to be the WWE anymore. Would they like to be? Sure. The WWE is like a global monstrosity. What wrestling company wouldn't want to be the WWE? But TNA is no longer trying to be a less expensive version, so to speak, of the WWE. Now they're just like, well, we'll just be TNA. And we'll find an audience, and we'll make it work. Much like Lucha Underground has done, much like New Japan Pro Wrestling has done. They've just created their own thing, and fans who will find it may like it, and those who don't, won't, and that'll be the end of it. They're happy with the way that they're going. They're not trying to be something else. If they get there, great. They're not going to turn down success if they can find it on the WWE level, but they're also not trying to compete with the giant in the industry anymore. They're just trying to do their own thing. And with the final deletion, they went out of their way and did their own thing. Now, there's clearly influence from Lucha Underground in what they did with the final deletion. The way this thing is shot is very much how Lucha Underground shoots their matches, their segments. They shoot it sort of like a movie, like a TV show. Heavy focus on the camera work, a lot on the edit. They try and make it a production, not just a wrestling match in a ring where this camera goes here and handheld cameras go there and the referee goes there and let's make it work. Now, that doesn't mean that the final deletion works on all the levels. If you go back and you see the contract signing that led into Slammiversary between the Hardys at Matt Hardy's compound, it's kind of an appetizer for what the final deletion wound up being. Some of the acting is completely over the top and ridiculous. The character work is ridiculous. It's very soap opera-ish in a way that wrestling hasn't been in a really long time. And while the match, I think, leaves something to be desired, the overall package of it, the way that it's presented, is the reason that TNA had its best ratings since debuting on Pop. Matt Hardy being excited over an exquisite xylophone birthday present for his kid is ridiculous. And as you watch it, you go, I can't believe this is happening. And then you question yourself and say, I can't believe I'm watching this. But you still do. You don't turn it off. And that's what TNA managed to do with the final deletion, is grab your attention and make it so you couldn't leave. They made every second of the final deletion must see. You had to know how this was going to turn out. What was going to happen next. As off the wall and absurd and ridiculous and insane as it all was, you couldn't help but watch the very next second. So credit to TNA. That's right. A tip of the hat to TNA. A company I've defended for a long time against unfair expectations that they would be legitimate competition or competitors for the WWE on the WWE level. That was never really their game. I know they tried to play it, but that wasn't their thing. Now that they're trying to be their own thing, they're making it work. It only took them more than a decade to figure that out. But for everybody who wants to always knock TNA along the way, this is the time to actually go back and give them a fair shot. Go in with an open mind. Forget all the disappointment from the Vince Russo era. Forget all the disappointment from the Hogan Bischoff era. Forget everything they tried to do in the past that gave you a glimmer of hope and then just didn't work. Forget all of that. Wipe the slate clean. Get out the eraser. Get out the wet paper towel if you're using a dry erase board. Just get it out. Wipe it all clean. Erase it. Start from scratch. And I think what you will find with TNA is something probably better than it's ever been for that company. They may not have the talent that they once did. Kurt Angle's not there. AJ Styles isn't there. Samoa Joe's not there. Christopher Daniels isn't there. You know, some of the old guard of TNA that you wish had a chance to sort of taste this creative success isn't there. But forget that and focus on the now, because I think what you will find here now is something that will satisfy you to a certain degree. Do they have the production value of the WWE? No. Are they trying to be the WWE? I hope not. They shouldn't be. But I think you will find that now TNA and their Impact Wrestling program on Pop TV is entertaining. Is better than adequate. In some respects, could be better than a 3-hour 4th of July Monday Night Raw. So I beg of you, give TNA a shot. And I think you'll find more that you like than you don't. And that may then cause you to be a regular viewer of TNA. May get you to put it on the DVR, check in periodically, which is more than you probably do right now, which is never at all. But kudos to TNA for creating something that grabs your attention and now has you at least considering checking out what happens on their future broadcasts. Speaking of future broadcasts in TNA, announcement came forth earlier today before we started lighting up the mics on this particular episode, and that is that TNA is shifting their time spot. Bad timing on their part because they just had this fantastic segment. Fantastic being completely subjective, but at least fantastic in the way that it got people talking. They just had this fantastic segment with the Hardys' final deletion, and now they have to move from the time that people may have been looking for them. Now, it's for good reason. TNA is going to be moving to Thursday nights starting July 21st. And you say to yourself, but why? Why are they doing that? Well, Tuesday night isn't going to work for them if they have to go head-to-head with the WWE and their new live SmackDown on Tuesday nights, which starts, I believe, the 19th, and kicks off with the draft. So TNA is heading for the high ground. They get the hell out of Dodge because they're going to give it Rampage if they go head-to-head with SmackDown. Especially with the fact that the WWE is splitting their roster. They're going to have two distinct brands between Raw and SmackDown. And they're trying to make their Tuesday night destination must-see. So TNA's got to get the hell out of Dodge. They got to go to another night. Can't go to Wednesday. That's NXT night on the network. People don't watch TV on Friday or Saturday as much as they used to, so Thursday night is really the best they could do. Now, I will tell you this. TNA is a slight disadvantage by being later in the week, because it's a lot of wrestling product for anybody to watch. Now, TNA could have TNA fans, but typically what they're trying to do is draw in wrestling fans and the hardcore wrestling fans who will watch a lot of product. But it's just a lot of wrestling to watch on any given night. Or any given week, rather. And on top of NXT on Wednesday, I forgot. I overlooked Lucha Underground. So Monday you got Raw. Tuesday you got SmackDown. Wednesday you got Lucha Underground and NXT. Now Thursday you got TNA. And Friday you got New Japan Pro Wrestling. There's a lot of wrestling. And then on the weeks where you got pay-per-views, you add those to your Sunday night. This is a shit ton of hours of wrestling. No one can watch that wrestling. Not that much. No one who wants to be a well-rounded individual. No one who wants to see the light of day. Spend time with friends and family. Can watch that much wrestling in a given week. It's 3 hours of Raw. 2 hours of SmackDown. 1 hour of NXT. 1 hour of Lucha Underground. 2 hours of TNA. 1 hour of New Japan. It's 9 hours of wrestling. That doesn't even take into account 4 hours of pay-per-view. 3 hours plus an hour of pre-show. That's 13 hours of wrestling in a week. When are people supposed to sleep? Go to work. Take a leak. So in that respect, I sort of feel bad for TNA for being late in the week, because by that point, people may be burnt out. Like, I already watched 5 hours of Raw and SmackDown. I got to do other shit. Now, maybe TNA is counting on people to choose between Raw and SmackDown, and maybe they could, wedge their way into the void. But if the WWE is smart and they divide their rosters evenly, and not the way that it once was with their brand extension, if they put equal amounts of talent on both shows and make you have to watch both Raw and SmackDown, well then TNA may be SOL. But people are talking about TNA. So maybe with the time slot move, maybe moving to Thursday night, maybe following the final deletion, maybe people will check it out and say, I already watched 8 hours of wrestling this week. What the hell is 2 more? I mean, clearly it's the smartest move that there is. They got to get the hell out of WWE's way or they're going to get steamrolled. So, look, I wish them all the best of luck on Thursday nights. A night they've been on before and they moved out of Thursday night because at that point, SmackDown moved from Friday to Thursday. They're in just a constant runaway mode from wherever SmackDown goes. SmackDown is like chasing them. SmackDown was on Friday night. TNA was on Thursday night. They moved SmackDown from Friday to Thursday. TNA said, we'll get the hell out of here. We'll go to Tuesday. SmackDown's now going, well, screw it. We're going to go live on Tuesday. TNA's like, I guess back to Thursday we go. If SmackDown ever moves again to Thursday, somebody over at TNA is just going to shit their pants, have a fit. But I hope they can make it. I hope they make a run on Thursday night. Get some people watching. And hopefully they keep up on the creative end to keep people interested, keep them intrigued by what it is that they're putting on their programming. If so, maybe for once, we can look at TNA and say, that's a pretty good wrestling company. They haven't been a bad wrestling company along the way. It's just been okay. Mediocre. Which is sometimes almost worse than just bad. So we'll see what happens with TNA's move to Thursday night. All right. Let's talk about Brock Lesnar. Because everybody's talking about Brock Lesnar. Because Brock Lesnar is now the main event at UFC 200. If you haven't been following the MMA news this week, Jon Jones, who is scheduled to compete in the main event at UFC 200, has been pulled from the card. His bout has been pulled from UFC 200 after he failed his dope test. A positive doping test has now forced Dana White and the UFC to pull the Jon Jones match from UFC 200. So now when you look at the UFC 200, you say, shit, if they didn't have Brock Lesnar on this card, they would be, well, you know where they would be. So now what we're looking at is Brock Lesnar in the main event at UFC 200. Brock Lesnar and Mark Hunt are the top draw for this milestone card for the UFC. And I've talked about this weeks before. I'm not an MMA guy. I actually just prefer straight up boxing. I'm not an MMA guy. But this Saturday night, I'm going to watch UFC 200. I got plans. I'm not ordering it. It's like $85 to watch at home. I'm going out to watch it. Got some friends. I'm going out. I'm going out to watch Brock Lesnar in the main event at UFC 100. And you know how many times I go out to watch a UFC pay-per-view in a public venue? Never. But I'm doing it because Brock Lesnar's on the card. Because Brock Lesnar is an attraction, period. I'm curious what's going to happen when he steps into the Octagon against Mark Hunt. Now, I got sort of the lowdown on what's going on with this particular match. I have been following it since the match was announced with Brock Lesnar stepping back into the Octagon. I do know that this is a fight that is probably going to end badly for one of the participants involved. Because styles make the match. And these two have styles that don't really mix well with one another. Mark Hunt, one of the best strikers in the UFC right now, is going against Brock Lesnar, who is really not good against strikers. Mark Hunt, one of the more powerful punchers in the UFC. Brock Lesnar, not really known to take a punch too well. It's horrible striking defense as well. But at the same token, Brock Lesnar is the beast. And if Brock Lesnar just decides that he's going to put his head down and run through Mark Hunt and get a takedown and then maybe go into some ground and pound or try and get a submission, well, then it may be a bad night for Mark Hunt. Either way, I don't know that this fight's getting out of the first round, but what I do know is that I want to watch it. And in that way, the UFC has done something much like TNA. They have created a buzz around the product that they are selling to you that now makes you want to go out of your way to watch it. So to sort of bring this full circle to how I said I wasn't going to talk about the WWE too much this week, it's something the WWE did not do this week. Because even though they were on the air on the 4th of July with Monday Night Raw, they did not create a show that you wanted to watch. If you were coming in and out of the house, had some guests over, having a barbecue, maybe you DVR'd it so you can catch it when you went home, and you put it on and you caught the first few minutes and you go, I don't really need to watch this. Well, that's WWE's fault. They can't blame it on, it's a holiday. You still have a program you got to put out there, and you should always be trying to put the best possible program you have on a nightly basis. UFC's done that with UFC 200. They got Brock Lesnar on the card. And once again, you look at the fact that the Conor McGregor-Nate Diaz fight got pulled not too long ago. You look at the fact that the John Jones fight now got pulled. All they have is Brock Lesnar. And Brock Lesnar is the selling point for this particular show. And you know what? It might be enough. MMA fans want to see what Brock Lesnar looks like in his return to the Octagon. Had some years off. Had a bad streak towards the end when he got sick with diverticulitis. They're curious. The mystique of Brock Lesnar that once was is now gone. But that doesn't mean the intrigue is gone. They go, I want to see if he still has it. Can he compete at a high level? Or is he going to come back into the Octagon from the wrestling ring and get knocked out? And by that same token, there are wrestling fans like myself who are interested in watching UFC 200 because they want to see Brock Lesnar in that Octagon one more time. They want to see if he can compete at that high level. They want to see if a wrestler can step into the Octagon and score victory. Now, the repercussions in the aftermath, we'll talk about that next week after this bout has already taken place. But at least going in, I know I'm not the only one at this moment in time who's saying to themselves, damn, I gotta watch UFC 200 because Brock Lesnar's on it. You may be one too. And maybe you're pulling for Lesnar, or maybe you're saying, I hope he loses. Either way, the fact that Brock Lesnar is on the show has you saying, my Saturday night is committed to watching him in the Octagon. And we'll see how it turns out. But once again, right now the UFC is doing wrestling better than wrestling is doing wrestling by creating a product that you want to watch, making it entertaining, making it intriguing, making it compelling. Slightly ironic that they've used a professional wrestler to do it on their biggest show of all time. All right, but that's not the only Brock Lesnar news to talk about this week. Brock Lesnar now has an opponent lined up for SummerSlam. Announced on SmackDown this week, Brock Lesnar has an opponent for SummerSlam. Set for August in Brooklyn. And it will be the returning Viper, Randy Orton. I'm not that crazy about the match, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm going to watch Brock Lesnar step into the Octagon with Mark Hunt. Randy Orton looks like nothing compared to that. And I understand, look, he hasn't been around for a while. He was injured. Now he's coming back, which also makes me a little bit more worried about the match as well, knowing how a Brock Lesnar match usually shakes out in the WWE, which is Brock Lesnar suplexes the shit out of whoever he's wrestling. Then the tides may turn for a little bit, and then in the end, he still F5s whoever, and he walks away with the victory. But I believe Randy Orton is coming back from shoulder surgery, having a long recovery, sort of get things right. The last thing you really want to do with a guy like that is just suplex him around the ring. Could you not find anybody a little more durable for Brock Lesnar to throw around like a rag doll for 15 minutes than a guy who just came back from being hurt with a bad shoulder? And look, I haven't always been the biggest Randy Orton fan to begin with. Kind of find Randy Orton a little bit dull, to be perfectly honest with you. RKO, great finishing. Great finishing move. Amazing finisher. Even Diamond Dallas Page, who basically originated the move as the Diamond Cutter, gives much credit to Randy Orton for taking the move to the next level and doing things with it that DDP didn't even imagine could be possible with it. One of the best all-time finishers ever, the RKO. But he still has that music, which puts me to sleep as he comes to the ring. He's not very charismatic. I mean, heel Randy Orton is much better. When they have babyface Randy Orton, it's just a slog. I can't imagine it's going to get any better as they get towards SummerSlam. Paul Heyman, Paul Heyman will sell the shit out of this match and make it sound important. And I understand the big name value of the match is, you still got to find somebody for Lesnar at SummerSlam who lives up to his name value, I guess. And we've already seen him with John Cena. We've already seen him with The Undertaker. At WrestleMania, he had Dean Ambrose, who's currently the WWE champion, who would make sense. But unless you're going to put Lesnar in a position where he's going to drop the match to Ambrose, who he just destroyed at WrestleMania, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I guess it's Randy Orton by default. I'm not too excited about the match, but the WWE knows this is their big show of the summer. SummerSlam is their big show of the summer. It's their WrestleMania of the summer season, as they like to call it. And as a result, as they head to Brooklyn in the Barclays Center, they want to put on the biggest card they possibly can. In fact, sometimes people regard SummerSlam as a better card overall than WrestleMania does. Because WrestleMania has the spectacle, but SummerSlam sometimes just has the better matches and the better stories that go into it. So I get, all right, let's put Randy Orton against Lesnar because he's been around for a while. He's going to be returning. People will be excited about it. He's got some name value. So he seems like a solid opponent for Brock Lesnar. But is there really an equal for Brock Lesnar in the WWE right now? The dude's fighting in the UFC the month earlier. I almost feel like it undercuts the credibility of Randy Orton to step into the ring with Brock Lesnar. And that's win or lose at UFC 200. I don't know that there is anyone that I can watch step into the ring with Brock Lesnar that will allow me to suspend disbelief for a few minutes that maybe they could put up a fight against Brock Lesnar that would result in them actually winning. There's nobody there. When The Undertaker did it, that was because it was The Undertaker. And The Undertaker has the aura and the mystique of being The Undertaker. And at WrestleMania 30, he had the streak. And when he fought him again at SummerSlam, 2 years later or a year and a half later, he's still The Undertaker. He's a legend. There are very few people still left in the WWE who have that feel to them, like a John Cena or The Undertaker, that you can say, okay, they're stepping in with Lesnar. Maybe I have some doubt as to who's going to win. Randy Orton's going to step in the ring with Brock Lesnar. He's going to get his ass kicked, which is perfectly fine by me. I'm just saying I don't know that it makes for an interesting match to watch. On paper, yeah, sure, because we haven't seen it. In execution, how exciting could it possibly be? Have you seen that NXT show this week like I told you to? Have you seen it? I told you about it. 2 out of 3 falls for the tag team title between the Revival and American Alpha. And you could probably see my pretty face all over that 1 hour of programming. You look at the hard camera, you just look dead center and like the first row elevated. You're going to find me right there in all of my bearded glory. I'm right there. So don't even just watch it for American Alpha versus the Revival. You make sure you watch it to see me in the stands doing whatever the hell it is I'm doing. I haven't watched back the match, but I saw it live and I know how incredible it was. So I hope you've seen it because I told you to. Once again, those are 2 teams that just know how to work together. And I don't know what's going to happen with the draft. I don't know if American Alpha is going to get the call up. I don't know how they're going to work the tag division between Raw and SmackDown and what they're going to do with those titles. I don't think the Revival is going anywhere, obviously, because now they are still the reigning NXT Tag Team Champions. But I'm going to miss watching those teams work. I can watch those 2 teams work all year. I know we've seen plenty of feuds along the way where you're just like, I'm kind of sick of watching these guys work. No, not those 2 teams. I can watch those 4 guys just go to work night in and night out, 52 weeks of the year, until I'm actually sick of it. And then I'll be like, all right, let's do something else. But until that comes, and I don't know when it is going to, I can watch those 2 teams and the chemistry they have all year long. So if you haven't already, go get caught up with this week's NXT. Watch that 2 out of 3 falls tag team title match between the Revival and American Alpha. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. That's the way tag team wrestling is meant to be seen. All right, let's talk about Bret Hart for this week. I know we like to think of Bret Hart in a favorable light, and he had a stroke and he came back from it after he had the concussion, and he came back from it. He just had cancer and he's fought through it and he came back from it. And we look at Bret Hart and we think back to the old days and we say, man, Bret Hart is one of the greats. I have so much respect for Bret Hart. I like thinking of him in that favorable light too. But sometimes Bret Hart can kind of be an asshole too. Bret Hart is a dude who I don't think understands sometimes that professional wrestling is a work. I don't think he understands that it's fake. I think he thinks it's legitimate. He tries to protect his reputation at all costs. He lives, breathes, bleeds, sweats, lives and dies wrestling, which I understand is fine. I get it. But sometimes Bret Hart has bought into his own hype too much on like a Kanye level. So Bret Hart has a podcast now called the Bret's Sharpshooter Podcast. And this week he went to town on Triple H. Now, this is the first time he's gone to town on Triple H, talking about how Triple H isn't all that good and whatnot, and how he was better than Triple H. Once again, doesn't really matter. It's predetermined to work. The best guy is who the boss says is the best guy. But he took like serious issue with Triple H over a video game rating. I can't make this shit up. This really happened. I'm going to read you the quote in a second. Let me just lay some groundwork for you. So in the WWE 2K16 video game, the various superstars that are incorporated in the game have rankings. They're rated, based off their power, their speed, their agility, whatever, and it all accumulates into a rating. If you were playing Madden football, different players have different ratings. The better players have better ratings, and so on and so forth. That's how they sort of adjust the skill level. Not everybody's even. The better players are better in the game. In 2K16, the better wrestlers have better ratings in the game. So Triple H has a 98 rating in the game. All right, maybe it's a little high, but whatever. It's a video game. It's a video game. You know what that means? It doesn't mean jack shit. It's a video game. Bret Hart's rating in the game is an 85. Well, fuck that. Bret Hart can't have him being 85 and Triple H being 98. So Bret Hart goes on the Sharpshooter podcast and just launches into a tirade about Triple H. So I'm going to read this to you so you can get the full extent of how Bret Hart at his advanced age isn't just like a grumpy old man or a grizzled old veteran. He may just be slightly senile. He may be actually getting into the area, the territory where you go, somebody really should watch this guy all the time. So I'm going to read you the quote. So he said, I like the new one, meaning WWE 2K16, but I have some discrepancies with the game a little bit. I went to a thing last fall when the latest 2K game was coming out. They were telling me how I'm an 85 or something like that, and Triple H is a 98. I remember I was like, why would he be a 98? And they go, well, because he's the boss, so we have to suck up to the boss. I don't know, he was laughing at it. It kind of pissed me off. I thought, I don't care how many titles Triple H wins. He can never lace my fucking boots up, period. He was a very good, mediocre wrestler. He never blew me away with anything he's ever done. He's never come up with much. He's always been a very decent wrestler that could give you a good match, but as far as being like mind-blowing, I never saw it. I've still never seen it. I've seen him in some matches, and the whole 4 out of 10 thing came out of his mouth with Brock Lesnar, which should have been such a good match. It was a mediocre match, if that. That's where the 4 out of 10 comes from. He's always a guy that will give you a 5 out of 10 match every night. He's going to give you all he can give you, and that's just my opinion. There's certain guys where you put these video games out, and I don't care. I think you have to do justice to the wrestlers as they were in their careers. It should be based on reality, not things like who you know in the office. Vince McMahon could make him 35-time world champion, and it doesn't mean he's 35 times better than anyone else that's ever wrestled. He's just not. As far as the games go, that's right, he's still going. As far as the games go, I think they should be honest. Someone like Bruno Sammartino should never be a jobber on a video game, so and so forth. I think you have to pay respect. When I think of a video game, I think about how I'd love to have Buddy Rogers versus Ric Flair. Something like that where you can wrestle these legends against each other from different periods and stuff. Should always represent the reality of what the business is and was. Should also include the respect the wrestlers have for each other in the dressing room. End quote. Now, I hate to break it to Bret Hart, but some of them, not some, I'd say most of the people who currently are in the demographic that's playing WWE 2K16 don't know who the fuck Bret Hart is. I mean, Bret Hart's what? He's gonna be like 65. He comes back, he's a legend, he's in the Hall of Fame, people treat Bret Hart with respect. The older crowd cheers him, oh look, they brought Bret Hart back. The 11-year-old kid who's in the audience, he's like, who the hell is this guy? Now, granted, he could go watch the WWE Network and get caught up, but once again, this is Bret Hart not understanding how wrestling works, which is absurd to say because he was a wrestler in the business. But if Bret Hart's getting pissed off at what his video game rating is, as if like it really means something in the real world, like it's somehow denigrating Bret Hart's contributions or legacy in professional wrestling because he's at 85 in WWE 2K16. See, Bret Hart needs to be watched all the time because he's losing it. Triple H is at 98. Who gives a shit? You know what? Play with Triple H then. Be the guy who's like, oh, I want to be the guy who plays with the guy with the highest rating. I'm going to be Triple H. Is Bret Hart like mad that like he was Bret Hart and he played some guy who was Triple H and then he got beat because Triple H was better in the game? Too bad. That's how video games work. It's not like they were actually had controllers attached to the real life people and Bret Hart in his prime lost to Triple H as if it would have mattered because it wasn't like they really ever fought. I can understand if like Bret Hart and Triple H had like a personal beef one day and they went out in the parking lot and Bret Hart kicked the shit out of Triple H. And then Bret Hart was like, no, there's no way he's a 98 and I'm an 85. I actually beat the shit out of him in the park. I have the proof to show that I'm higher than an 85 and he's lower than a 98. If that happened, I can understand. I would get it. But this still goes back to having like sour feelings on the Montreal Screwjob where Triple H was sort of a not a mastermind, because I think that gives him too much credit, but I would say an integral part in the thought process that led to the Montreal Screwjob back in the Survivor Series of 97. And what does it matter if anybody gets made the 35-time world champion? I mean, we still hold up, like, Ric Flair as being the 16-time champion, and I know people were getting pissed that John Cena's at like 15. And they're like, oh my God, he better not tie Ric Flair. Does it really matter? I mean, the reason that we have this particular show, the Intelligent Wrestling Conversation, is that fanboy speak is not welcome. The hysteria of the IWC is not welcome here. Oh my God, I can't believe they're doing that. We try to put things in a logical, in reasonable context, in some type of perspective, because we love wrestling and we try to talk about it in an intelligent fashion. But let's call a spade here. It's all make-believe. It's pretend. Sure, they're athletically gifted people doing amazing things, but it's all pretend. It's not real. You don't see Jesse Eisenberg walking around pissed off that Henry Cavill or Ben Affleck got to beat him in Batman v Superman. You want to know why? Because it's a movie. It's not real. They're telling a story. He's playing a character. It's a role. Bret Hart, what is your deal? It's a work, dude. It's not real. Even if you had 35 championships, who gives a shit? It's just somebody decided to put the belt on you 35 times, which means you also lost 35 times. It's a video game rating, dude. Seriously, get over it. It's okay to get over it. Get on with your life, dude. You don't have much time left. I'm not putting Bret Hart in the ground yet, but I'm just saying he's less time on this earth than he once did. And it would be a shame for him to be so angry as he heads towards the grave. And if Bret Hart dies, like, out of outrage over his video game rating, I can't even be upset. I'm going to laugh if that happens. I mean, I'll be upset because Bret Hart died, but, like, if, like, he just, like, stresses himself out over, like, Triple H's video game rating because he has a 98 and he only has an 85. That's no way to go, dude. That's just no way to go. All right, there is something to get excited about, though, that's not Bret Hart's ridiculous sense of reality and how it all pertains to video game ratings. And that is The Rock is returning to wrestling, kind of. No, he's not returning to the WWE yet. No, there's nothing announced about him being at SummerSlam or WrestleMania 33 next year, although I'm sure he'll be in Orlando next year. But The Rock is hitting up his YouTube channel to create a contest for wrestling fans to take part in. The Rock has created the Rock the Promo contest, calling for wrestling fans all over the globe to submit 45-second wrestling promos that will be judged by undisclosed wrestling legends, and the 32 best will be put in competition with one another until they get to one. So if you are one of those dudes, and I know you are, or maybe you're a lady, it's okay. If you're a female wrestling fan as well. So any dudes or ladies out there, wrestling fans, who sit in front of the mirror periodically and you cut a wrestling promo, now's the time to put a camera in your face, record it for posterity, upload it onto the web, and take part in the Rock the Promo contest. I think it's a cool idea. I may even participate. Now, the Rock caught some heat, though, with this because Taz, who is the Taz Show, which started out as the podcast and is now on CBS Radio as sort of a live podcast, I guess, has been doing something similar on Wednesdays. I think he has Hump Day Promo, which is 45 seconds, has listeners call in and deliver their promos. Took issue with The Rock for what he called gimmick infringement and stealing his idea. And then got on Twitter and tweeted some things at The Rock. The Rock was, apologetic because The Rock's he's a nice guy. Rock doesn't want to cause any beef with anybody. But he came out and he said, dude, I didn't even know you had a show. Which would seem insulting to Taz, like, I didn't even know you had this show, that you had a similar idea. But let's face it, The Rock's got a lot of shit going on in his life that I'm pretty sure The Rock doesn't know who the fuck has a podcast these days. Number one, The Rock doesn't strike me as a podcast kind of guy. But number two, The Rock gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning and he lifts. And then he eats. And then he does cardio. And then he eats some more. And then The Rock goes and develops 8,732 projects that he's attached to, whether we're in the movie, on the web, or on TV. Then he works out 3 or 4 more times. He eats 6 more times. He goes to bed, and then he wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning, all probably while he's flying on his private jet from coast to coast to make sure he's doing an incredible amount of shit. The Rock probably does more in one day than most of us do in an entire lifetime. So I'm pretty sure The Rock didn't know that Taz had a show. I don't even know that The Rock knows that the WWE has a network until they give him the talking points and they go, make sure you plug the network. He goes, I didn't even know this was happening because The Rock is busy doing other shit. So Taz shouldn't take too much issue with The Rock coming up with a similar idea. Sometimes great minds just think alike. Either way, I think you should take part in the Rock the Promo contest. If you're listening to the show or you're a wrestling fan, what the hell not? It's 45 seconds. Just throw caution to the wind, create a character, say, fuck it, I'm going to do a wrestling promo, send it in there, and hope for the best. Because what you may wind up doing, if you win, is getting to eat like 32 pancakes with The Rock. Or like those double dough, like super extra large pizzas that he eats. I mean, I don't really know what the prize is, but that would be pretty amazing. Actually, that's not true. I think you actually get your own belt if you win the whole thing. You get like a Rock the Promo Championship belt, I think, handed to you by The Rock. If that's not worth 45 seconds of maybe making an ass out of yourself, I don't really know what is. All right, let me just take a couple minutes to talk about Raw. I said I wasn't going to talk much about it, so a couple minutes, that should do it. And then we can get the hell out of here for this week's show. So, Monday Night Raw takes place on the 4th of July. 4th of July happens on Monday this year. So, Monday Night Raw takes place on the 4th of July. I understand a lot of people aren't inside watching Monday Night Raw at 9 o'clock on the 4th of July. They're outside. Maybe they're still barbecuing. Maybe they're out in the pool. They're probably watching fireworks somewhere. Wrestling, not on the mind. But the WWE's job is to make it be on your mind. To make you, as a fan, say, fuck it, I don't need to see fireworks. I got to see what happens on Monday Night Raw this week. And did they do that this week? Yeah, absolutely not. It was like a throwaway show, which is such a waste. Because if you have 3 hours on television on any given night, you gotta put something there that makes people want to watch. And you can't have the convenient built-in excuse of, oh, well, it's a holiday. We didn't expect people to watch. Then just don't even have the show. I understand you like to continue to brag and tell everybody that you're the longest-running episodic television program in television history. And that streak would end if you took a week off. But isn't it almost better to have no show than like a half-assed one? Just be like, hey guys, it's 4th of July. We're taking off too. Instead of giving us what they gave us. Because Raw starts out with a food fight. Which, you know, is kind of alright to be involved in one. I mean, you know, you still gotta, like, clean up after the mess and everything like that. So, like, that part sucks. But watching other people have a food fight, never nearly as interesting as people think it is. You're like, oh, look at those other people throwing food. That seems like a waste. And I understand, like, it's one for the boys and people might look like they're having a good time, but people don't turn into wrestling programs and watch a food fight happen. And that's how the show started, which just lets you know that it was all downhill from there. Titus O'Neil challenged Rusev for the U.S. title unsuccessfully. It was the 4th of July, so for some reason Titus O'Neil came down to the ring dressed like Apollo Creed in Rocky IV, complete with American top hat. And I get, look, Titus O'Neil is a good guy. He was like Dad of the Year last year, and he's a good dude. Everybody felt bad when he got suspended for, you know, touching Vince McMahon. But he's not a very interesting guy to watch. He doesn't really have a character. He's still remarkably green, which for a guy who's been around for like 6 years, doesn't really speak well for Titus O'Neil. He's just not very fluid. He's very stiff. Just, I don't know. Like, stop putting him in these matches. The Social Outcast versus Enzo and Big Kaz, which is fine because Enzo and Big Kaz get people excited. And I'll talk a little bit more about them in just a second because they had a big role to play down the line. But so they get a squash victory. You have Champ versus Champ, Dean Ambrose versus The Miz, which typically might be exciting, except it literally just happened on SmackDown last week. I think there's one mention of it being a return match. They talk about how a champ versus champ match is a rare occurrence in the WWE, except when it's not because it just happened like 4 days ago. And JBL's commentary, which is usually atrocious to begin with, was like next level awful this week. As he oversold Dean Ambrose and being the lunatic and how this guy can't be a champion, how he scares small children. Dean Ambrose isn't scaring anybody. He's about as organic as people like. He's scrappy. People think he's a little bit odd. But people love him. Buy his merch like crazy. If you want to know who scares small children, it's JBL. It's a big dude. Kind of intimidating looking. If like a 4-year-old kid looked up and saw JBL, they'd want to get the hell out of there. Because he doesn't seem very friendly at all. I have seen JBL walking through the WWE hotel during WrestleMania weekend in mesh shorts, a t-shirt, and flip-flops as he made his way to the pool. And still in my head, I said to myself, I would never go say hi to that guy. He looks like he's pissed off all the time. So you want to know somebody who scares small children? It's you, JBL. It's not Dean Ambrose. It's you. So don't oversell too much about how this guy shouldn't be the champion. He's babyface. He's not scaring anybody. You want to know who scares small children? Kane. He's got a mask. He's got fire and loud explosions when he comes to the ring. That's somebody who scares small children. A guy who wears jeans and a tank top with messy hair? That's not frightening at all. Now, one thing I will say I was excited about this week on Monday Night Raw is there were 2 women's segments, which is one more than has been standard. So there were 2 women's segments. 3 if you count Vicky Guerrero's return for a few moments. We had 2 women's segments. You had one, Becky Lynch versus Summer Rae, which, while I'm excited that there was a second women's segment, the match was kind of sloppy. Becky Lynch is like no support right now since they cooled her off. Got to build her right back up. In fact, as her music hit, they had like an aerial crowd shot. Nobody stood up. Nobody was excited. It was kind of pitiable. Director's choice to show the crowd like that for somebody they used to be excited about once upon a time. So they got a lot of fire under Becky Lynch once again and get people invested in what it is that she's doing as she has this sort of program heading into Battleground with Natalya. But the highlight of the women's division came about this week where you had finally a face-to-face showdown between Charlotte and Sasha Banks. Now, these are 2 individuals that were really at the heart of the Divas Revolution when it first started and were really the faces of why these women were called up from NXT to the WWE. So to watch Charlotte and Sasha Banks be able to go face to face and cut lengthy promos against one another was really good. Number one, Charlotte's coming into her own as a heel in the women's division, so that works. Even if she has Dana Brooke, who's just extremely annoying on her side, and not even like good annoying where you're just like, oh, boo. It's annoying where you're like, I wish this person wasn't on my television right now. That's how much I can't stand listening to them talk. Or act, or wrestle, or do anything. Dana Brooke belongs back in NXT, but that's another conversation for another show. But allowing Charlotte and Sasha the time to sort of go back and forth with one another, that was great. And it's why people are excited about women's wrestling again. And why the women are now called women and not divas anymore. It's because they're actually capable of doing things in the ring and on the mic like the dudes are. So as they build towards this match, which is coming, I hope we don't necessarily see it at Battleground. I know they're going to pull the trigger on it. We're going to get it early. But I would say just hold off a little bit longer, make it extended, feed it into SummerSlam, and then that will be the moment in Brooklyn that blows the roof off when Sasha takes the belt off of Charlotte. It'll be great. But keep allowing them to feed into that feud because I think it's going somewhere, and both those women are capable on the mic to really get people invested in the personal issues, which drives feuds. So it was cool to see 2 women's segments, even if one was just okay. But if you put Sasha and Charlotte together in a segment for me, I'm super excited. Dolph Ziggler versus Seth Rollins had a really good match, as good as you would expect from a Dolph Ziggler versus Seth Rollins match. So if you're going to go back and watch Monday Night Raw, then go check that out. I hope Dolph Ziggler gets some new life with the brand extension because the dude can just sell. Puts on a good match all the time. Gets people to believe and invested in him, even though every time he just pulls the... He's like... It's like Wile E. Coyote, I guess. Like you think... Every time he steps in the ring, maybe he'll get the Roadrunner, with the Roadrunner being a win, but nah, it never happens. Even though he makes you believe, he gets so close. You go, oh, maybe this is Dolph Ziggler's night, and then it's not. And you go, man, Dolph. But every time he still gets you to believe. And that kind of led into a Dean Ambrose-Seth Rollins fight, which also was pretty good, so watch that whole segment. The Golden Truth versus the Vaudevillains. Yep, that happened. So that should let you know. And Breezango was there ringside, and they did nothing. So I think the less said about that, the better. You had one segment that was teased throughout the show. We talk about how there's very little through line through Monday Night Raw. One segment was teased throughout the show, and that was the John Cena segment. Now, here's the deal with John Cena versus the Club. They're putting on a really good program right now. I could easily say that was one of the highlights of Monday Night Raw, and you may find it easily if you're anywhere online right now and you find the memes about beating up John Cena. Because John Cena calls out the Club, calls out AJ Styles for needing these guys all the time with him. And AJ Styles cuts this great promo on beating up John Cena. Basically, that's what they're going to do every day. They just want to beat up John Cena. They're like, what are you going to do on 4th of July? Maybe I'll go for a swim. I'll eat some hamburgers and hot dogs. I'll watch some fireworks. And then I'll beat up John Cena. What are you going to do on Easter? Maybe we'll go look for some eggs. Maybe we'll eat some chocolate. And then we'll beat up John Cena. What are you going to do on Arbor Day? Arbor Day? Beat up John Cena. Halloween? Trick-or-treating? Then we'll beat up John Cena. So there's like great memes out there, if you look for them, about how every day is beat up John Cena Day. To the point that I think John Cena actually tweeted about how excited people were about beating up John Cena on any given day. It was a really good promo from AJ Styles and the Club on beating up John Cena. Which should just show how they're getting over is the fact that if people are really embracing this idea of beating up John Cena on any given day, then whatever it is that they're doing right now is working. But so they come down to the ring because it's the 4th of July, and hey, we said we're going to beat up John Cena. We're here, we'll beat up John Cena today. And they come down to the ring, and it's a 3-on-1 beatdown of John Cena, which has been going on for weeks. And I point this out all the time, anytime a babyface is getting beat up by some heels, is no one ever comes down and makes the save anymore. They just let these guys get their ass kicked. These are guys who are supposed to be good guys, good dudes. John Cena's supposed to be a good guy. And yet he gets beat in the locker room and nobody gives a shit. Like, nobody cares. 3 guys are just jumping him in the ring and everybody's like sitting back like, I'm not leaving catering to help John Cena. Even though it would help get people over. Now, there are times when it could work against you because there are sometimes so many people that don't like John Cena that if you come down and make a save, it almost gets heat on you for helping John Cena. Like in this case, you would have somebody come down and help John Cena and they would boo you because they want to see John Cena get beat up today. But the creative in WWE made a pretty smart decision this time around by sending Enzo and Big Cass out to make the babyface save. Which then will now led up to an announced match with Cena, Enzo, and Big Cass versus the Club at Battleground, 6-man tag. But I thought this was really good because Enzo and Big Cass are incredibly over right now as babyfaces. So even going down and helping to save John Cena doesn't work against them because the crowd loves them so much that they go, oh man, look what heroes these guys are for coming down and saving John Cena. They don't go, I can't believe they got in the way of John Cena's beatdown. They go, Enzo and Big Cass, such good dudes. And what it also does is it helps take them up to the next level. It helps Enzo and Big Cass be seen as someone on the level of John Cena and AJ Styles and Gallows and Anderson. That's huge for a new tag team. And that's why I talked about in the past how babyface saves can help make a babyface. Even if Enzo and Cass would have gotten their ass kicked, it would have drawn sympathy to him as a babyface for at least putting forth the effort to try and save John Cena. That's helpful. So, look, Enzo and Big Cass are destined for big things. They have great crowd interaction, charisma. They have a great package. They are destined for great things. And it was nice to see them get that extra leg up now by sort of being put together with John Cena here, which helps, I think, legitimize them as the real deal. You had a New Day and Wyatt segment that was just okay. They're sort of teasing maybe a New Day split, but it was nice to at least see the New Day get serious for once by being lined up against the Wyatts as opposed to just sort of the fun entertainment they normally provide, which for me is sort of wearing thin. So kudos to at least putting a wrinkle in the New Day packaging there. And then the main event just made no sense. You had a 16-man elimination match, which was the United States Team USA versus the Multinational Alliance. And basically you had two teams of 8 filled with people who would never tag with one another. The sides were the Big Show, Kane, Apollo Crews, the Dudley Boys, Jack Swagger, Mark Henry, and Zack Ryder versus, and this is where it gets even worse, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, who hate each other, have a blood feud going, but are somehow expected to team up and cooperate here. So Zayn and Owens, Cesaro, Alberto Del Rio, and Sheamus, who also hate each other, the Lucha Dragons, and Chris Jericho. Now, it wasn't really a match, it was just a series of finishers and eliminations. And in the end, the Big Show and Zack Ryder walked out victorious. Team USA was supposed to be the big winners, and really, in the end, the only people that mainly lost was all of us who sat and watched the 4th of July Monday Night Raw. So it is what it is. I hope things get better as we head towards Battleground. But the 4th of July show was really a throwaway, and that's sort of sad. Because maximize your TV minutes, as Jim Ross likes to say. Make the most of your TV time, what you have at your disposal. That's why this week you saw Raw's numbers go down, TNA's numbers go up. That's why you're going to see the UFC 200 numbers shoot through the roof when they do those pay-per-view buys. Give the people something compelling to watch, and they'll tune in to watch it, even if it means blowing off fireworks on the 4th of July. With that said, I'm going to get out of here for this week. So let me get my plugs in, and we'll send everybody on their way. Make sure you follow us on social media. Hit us up on the Twitter. So at the IWC show, that's the official Twitter handle for Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. So every time we got a brand new show that goes up, you can be notified of it on Twitter. Add that to your timeline. As well as at Tis Infamous. That's the official Twitter for the mothership. This is Infamous. So anything that goes up there on the site as well, you want to make sure you check out and have that on your timeline as well. At Tis Infamous. And me, for all my random ramblings and musings, my stream of consciousness put into the written word, at Infamous Kid. 2 Ds at the end. On your Twitter, at Infamous Kid. Over on Facebook, we ask that you like 2 separate pages, facebook.com/tisinfamous and facebook.com/bullythekid. I know the Facebook algorithms are rough, but we got lots of interesting discussion threads thrown up there all the time, so take part in those Facebook pages, facebook.com/tisinfamous and facebook.com/bullythekid. Podcasts can be found all over the place, so you name it, you can find it. SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever it is that you get your podcast from, that's where you can find the show. All that we ask is that you go ahead and subscribe to the show wherever it is. This way it is hand-delivered every time a brand new show gets uploaded. and that you rate and like the show. Leave some comments if they're there so that we can get some feedback. You can let other people know what it is that you think of the show, and ultimately it helps our placement on those podcast distribution models, the better feedback we get. So click those stars, get them all the way up there, and any comments, leave them for us so that we know. If you want to send an email, you can send an email as well. theiwcshow@gmail.com. Got any questions, comments, feedback, or commentary, go ahead and send it to me. theiwcshow@gmail.com. I read every single email, and if you got something interesting, maybe we'll raise it up on the show. You can find my work on a regular basis at joeblow.com, as well as thisisinfamous.com. I hope you had a good 4th of July weekend. Make sure that you check out NXT this week and next week. Look, you got another really good NXT show coming up, as well as the Cruiserweight Classic. I hope you checked out the bracketology there as well on the WWE Network. Follow my work once again, joeblow.com and thisisinfamous.com. I am your host, Billy Donnelly. This has been Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. I'm going to get it out for now, so have yourself a pleasant, immediate future, and I'll see you back here next week. Peace. Intelligent Wrestling Conversation has been a podcast presentation of This Is Infamous.